Hey, this is Mr. Ward. I'm going to solve a few systems of equations using a tool called elimination. Now, elimination is a little different from substitution, in which we're going to actually operate on two equations simultaneously. And it turns out you can add equations together, you can subtract equations, you can multiply them together, you can divide equations by other equations. In this case, we're just going to be adding or subtracting them. And what we're going to do, since this part of this equation is the same thing as this part of the equation, if I were to add this to this, it's the same as adding this to this, because this and this are the same thing. And if I'm adding this to this, it's the same as adding this to the equation. So basically, I'm doing the same thing to both sides of the equation because they are literally equations. These two things are equal. So if I add this to this equation, it's the same thing as adding this to this part of the equation. So it is completely legit to do it this way. Now we can add these equations, and it turns out, if you look here, I've got negative 4x and I've got a 4x here. And the really neat thing is, if I add these together, I will eliminate the x part, the x variable, completely. And that's just going to leave me a y variable. And if I've just got a y variable, I'll actually be able to solve for y. And if I can solve for y, if you've done substitution already, you know that if you can solve for one of the variables, then you can substitute that value in and figure out what the other variable is. So let's do this. So we're going to add these two equations. When I add these two equations, negative 4x and positive 4x, those are opposites. So they're going to become just a big fat 0. And then I'll have negative 2y plus 8y, which is going to be 6y. And that's going to equal negative 12 plus negative 24, which is negative 36. I'm going to get my eraser because I didn't even need this plus 0 here anymore. So I'm just really left with 6y equals negative 36. So I'll divide both sides by 6. And y will end up equaling negative 36 divided by 6, which is negative 6. Now, once I know that y is negative 6, I can go into one of these equations and I can replace y with negative 6. So I'll put it right here. I'm going to replace this y with negative 6. So I'll have negative 4x. I have a cat coming to visit me, complaining loudly. But I've got negative 4x minus 2y, and that y, I'm going to go ahead and keep going here, and I'll fix that, negative 12. What I'm going to do is I'm going to erase that y, and I'm going to replace that y with what I know y is. Y is negative 6. And now I've got just one variable again. I've just got an x. So negative 4, I'm going to erase some of this stuff down here so it's out of my way. You've already seen it. If you need to go back and see it, you can go back a bit in this video. Okay, so let's solve for x. So negative 2 times negative 6 is positive 12. I still have this negative 12 here. And I've got negative 4x. The subtraction became addition since it was a negative times a negative. Now I just need to subtract 12 from both sides to get rid of that. So minus 12. And then I end up with negative 4x is going to equal negative 24. So x is going to equal negative 24 divided by negative 4, which is positive 6. So I have a solution to this system at x is 6, y is negative 6. And I'm done. Now I invite you to try this one now. I'm going to pause the video and see if you can repeat what I just did, because you've got opposites here. You can add these two equations and the x stuff is going to go away, and then you'll be able to figure out what y is. Once you know what y is, you can replace y in one of these equations and figure out what x is. So let's carry on here. So hopefully you have tried this out, and I'm going to walk through how I would do it. So since I've got opposite coefficients here, I can simply add the equations, and I'll end up with 0 here. So that just goes away. So that's 0. And then 8y plus 2y is going to be 10y. And then 20 plus negative 30 is going to be negative 10. And I'll just erase the 0 because I don't need it. So I now just have 10y equals negative 10. And so y is going to be negative 1. All right, well, if y is negative 1, now I can go and plug negative 1 in for either one of these y's. I'll do it up here. I'll have 4x, okay, is going to be plus 8 times negative 1, which means that's just going to be minus 8. 8 times negative 1 will be a negative 8. What I've done is I've replaced this y with a negative 1. So then I'm going to have 4x minus 8 equals 20. And now I can add 8 to both sides. So 4x is going to equal 28 because I added 8 to both sides. And then divide both sides by 4, and x will equal 7. So my solution is 7, comma, negative 1, because x will be 7 and y will be negative 1. And that's the solution for that one. All right, I'm going to move on down to a different one at this point. So let's see what we can do with this. I have to erase things. Hang on. Now, sometimes when you want to eliminate things, you don't add, you subtract. So the whole reason we're calling this the elimination is you get to eliminate a variable by adding or subtracting the two equations. So in this case, we have negative 6x plus 6y equals 6, and negative 6x plus 3y equals negative 12. So we don't have opposites, so adding won't work. But subtracting would work because same minus same is nothing. So if I subtract the bottom equation from the top one or the top one from the bottom one, it doesn't matter which way I go. Actually, it'll work either way. But I'll go this way. I'll do the traditional subtract downwards. So negative 6x minus negative 6x is 0x. So that's just 0. And then 6y plus minus 3y is going to simply be 3y. So I took 3y's away from 6y's. And 6 minus negative 12, watch out, that's the same as adding 12. That's 18. So it should be fairly straightforward that y is going to equal 6. Okay, I'm not sure why my stylus is not working so well. But y is 6. Now, once I know y is 6, I can plug it into either one of these equations and figure out what x is. I'm going to use this one since I'll be multiplying by a smaller number. So I'll end up with negative 6x plus 3 times 6, which is going to be 18. Okay, so plus 18. And that's going to equal negative 12. And of course, I'll subtract 18 from both sides. I'll end up with negative 6x. And if I take 18 away from both sides, negative 12 minus 18 is going to be negative 30. And then I'll divide both sides by negative 6, and x will equal negative 30 divided by negative 6 is positive 5. So I have a solution at 5, 6. And there we go. All right, so I invite you to try it with number 8. And I'm not going to invite you to try it with these down here because these are for 4b, because if you notice, the coefficients don't match. Give it a try for number 8. Pause the video. I'm going to go ahead and erase things. All right, I'm going to assume you paused and you tried this out. So you probably figured out that you have the same thing here. So we're going to eliminate y because we got a 2y and a 2y. We can subtract the two equations. If I subtract the two equations, I'll end up with a negative 6 here. So that's negative 6. Okay, put my equal sign in. 2y minus 2y is nothing. I don't even care about that. So I'm just going to say 7x minus 8x, and that's going to be negative 1x. So negative 1x is negative 6, which means x is just 6. And now I can plug 6 into either one of these equations. I'll choose the top one. So I'll say 7 times 6 plus 2y equals 24. And then I'm going to have 42 here plus 2y equals 24. Sorry about the handwriting here. See if I can fix that. There we go. All right, so that's a plus sign, so I'll clear that up. Wow, my stylus is really uncooperative tonight. All right, so I'm going to keep simplifying. I'll subtract 42 from both sides. So I'm going to end up with just a 2y here, and 24 minus 42 is going to be 18. So 2y equals 18. And then it should be clear that y is going to be 9. So y will be 9. And so I have a solution at 6, 9. So we can write it like this. Our solution is 6, comma 9. If you got that when you were working it out, that's awesome. All right. So this is elimination. This is actually my preferred method if I have to choose between equal ones. So we have substitution and graphing. I find elimination to be quite elegant as an approach. You may prefer a different one, and that's totally fine. In my next video, I'm going to be dealing with how to do elimination when the coefficients are not matches, are not opposites. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to scale one of the equations up or down so that a set of coefficients will match. But that's for a different video, and that's for 4b. I hope this was helpful. And if you need more, there is, of course, plenty of resources out there on how to do elimination.